Yeah, I mean, in Florida, it's so easy to just go out anywhere by yourself and walk into any, like you said, it's just so easy. There's a feralness to Florida. Everyone knows about it. Like it's just a feral energy that even allows people to approach other people, and it's not like a law at first. You just kind of walk into it. You're like, what kind of weird are you? It's hot out here.
Yeah.
And North Carolina, it's the South. Like Florida's not the South. It's south. It's located south, but it's not the South. It's until I think a couple more generations die off. North Carolina. I love love. I love to be. When you experience love and partnership the way I did, you crave it. You want it. I mean, it's incredible. We built something together, and it was fucking magical. I married the most magical person I've ever met in my entire life, and it was such a gift. I mean, the gift that he gave me, he showed me my self-worth. He showed me how to love myself. Like I was none of those things before him.
What the is EDM?
You've been traveling a bit too, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to travel more. I am. I went to Florida recently. I went to Boca Raton.
Yeah. How was it?
That was my first time going back in a really long time. And it was my first time going back to Boca since my husband passed. And I grew up there, it's like, that's where a lot of everything happens. So
did you all spend a lot of time together there?
Well, my dad was living there, and he passed there 6 years ago. This month is his 6-year anniversary. He had cancer. He was living in Medellin.
Oh, Medellin, Colombia.
Yeah, he was. He was a old Jewish man. He moved to Colombia. His
my condolences. So my dad also died of cancer.
Yeah,
I think we talked about that.
Yeah, it's brutal. And Boca, it's just it was interesting. Like I drove past the house I grew up in as a child. It was a lot to take in. But every time I go to Florida, I'm really proud of myself. It's hard to go back to Florida.
Yeah.
But
what are the people like in Florida lately?
Oof. Oh my gosh. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Since I've recently, I guess, come out of my hibernation grief bubble, you know, I'm like almost 2 years in, and I'm like coming out more, putting out that energy, putting out the energy that, I'm approachable now. It's just that simple to do, right? And
healing takes time.
Yeah. And I'm finally at a space where I'm healed enough to kind of be like, all right, let's see what kind of dudes are out here. And
because it's not like it's a breakup. It's like something was ripped directly away from you.
It wasn't a breakup, but I guess that energy made it to Florida before I did, because all of a sudden all these like fuck boys from my past hit me up, like like all the they trying to get back on the roster. I was like, I am not 25, and I am a very different healed version. Like this one guy, I know he's married. He's like, he hit me up the other day, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm going through a divorce. I think about you all the time. I used to mess around with him when I was like 25. This little Puerto Rican number. He's oh God, they'll sing to you underneath the moon. The Puerto Ricans, I'm telling you, they will try to serenade your ass. They'll tell you exactly what you want.
Yeah, that's when they speak the best Spanish, because they can speak over the shit. Yeah, they can sing the lyrics to a song, but they can't speak it in regular cadence.
They get it right, and he was like talking me up for a couple days, and blah blah blah, trying to make me laugh. And he thinks I'm the same person I was 10 years ago, which I'm a completely different person, and he's still the same. And by day 2, we were like chopping it up, and I was like, I don't believe you're getting divorced. And he goes, what? I was like, put your lawyer on the phone, get him on three-way, prove to me you're getting divorced.
Shit.
And he's like, oh well, my lawyer doesn't like. So I'm like, Florida, dude. It's all South Florida. They're the same. But, Florida's beautiful. Besides the people, it's the same.
I'm so glad that they mentioned Florida, because I didn't want to talk to you about Florida. It seems like people in Florida get along better from what I remember. Like, I don't know if it may have changed, right? But I love North Carolina, right? But it seems like and maybe it's a generational thing, right? Like I feel like a lot of people are living in this like Ready Player One reality where they're like where I see dudes online like in the scene, like casting judgment, like they're fucking Hitler Youth against other dudes, and it's like, oh, this is an outrage. It's like it's almost like it's like there's this status that comes with associating yourself with like some cause that I feel like people just thrive on this cloud, that I feel like people in Florida, like, I don't know if it's too hot or whatever, they're outside. And I feel like people in Florida are interacting more in the real world day to day. Now, of course, it's just a party. So they're just like, once again, that's why things haven't changed, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. What like, do you think people in Florida are as, like, so for example, here, right, you see like pockets of like tribalism and scenes and like, you know, like people not getting along with other people over, and we've had this discussion recently. We did a podcast yesterday with Harrison where, for example, you and I probably have a lot of things that we don't agree on, but there's a lot of things that we do agree on and that we can get along on. Mm-hmm. And I think that you get a lot of that in Florida where people are not like, well, fuck it, let's have a beer, love the air show or whatever, right? Like the beach is nice. I like swimming. I like the elbow room. I like, snorkeling.
Elbow room, baby.
But or it's like, and I have people from like two tribes in my family, right? They're very polarized.
Yeah.
But I don't know if, like, I don't know if, I feel like, is that good? I don't know. I feel it's getting worse and worse, this like polarization of people. I don't know.
What, in Florida or in North Carolina?
In North Carolina, like.
Yeah, I mean, in Florida, it's so easy to just go out anywhere by yourself and walk into any, like you said, it's just so easy. There's a feralness to Florida, everyone knows about it, like it's just a feral energy that even allows people to approach other people, and it's not like a law at first. You just kind of walk into it. You're like, what kind of weird are you? It's hot out here, And North Carolina, it's the South, like Florida's not the South. It's South. It's located South, but it's not the South, it's until I think a couple more generations die off, North Carolina is going to be that way. I don't know, it has the undertone of the South still,
Yeah, I hear you, and it's you know what, feralness is a great way to put it, because I think people are like ashamed of the animal nature of humans, right? Like I feel like people are trying to be so sanitized from like even the things that we were talking about, emotion, right? Mm-hmm. Human connection, like making mistakes. I mean, there's no more mistakes made than in Florida. I mean, like it's just like literally.
Florida is a mistake. Florida's like a failed abortion.
Yeah, like I've literally fucked inside of a club right next to like the VIP table in Florida, right? Like
anything.
I've gotten out on the highway because we all had to pee and peed on the side of the highway, on the left shoulder, like, and then gotten back on. In South Florida, we would like chug a bottle of Jägermeister in like Broward, and we would chug it right before we went out, and then drive to Miami because it's gonna take at least 30 minutes to an hour for the alcohol to hit you. So you're basically speeding down
95
before you're intoxicated, right?
Just like flying down. I don't know how we didn't die.
Because like you like know this, I know this, like death is a part of life, and it's like, how did you live, right? Like, do you want to, like, one thing that I feel people in Florida don't have is like, well, I didn't try that when I was younger. No, you tried it. Like you just went for it. Yeah. Maybe there are some things where you made a mistake, but do people learn more from their mistakes or from their successes?
I made really fun mistakes in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Will you mind bringing this a little closer?
I got everything out in Florida. I got everything out in my 20s. I moved to Key West in my 20s.
Oh, Key West.
I got completely feral on that island for several years. And I'm so happy I did it then, because I can't do it as a 35-year-old woman. People are doing it. I'm not judging them. I don't have the energy to do it. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. It's like, because I was dating Andy when I was like 36, right? And time flies by. Yes. And now I'm like 38, and I'm like, okay. And once again, like we work with like in comedy with a lot of young people, and it's like, it's the way that I see it. It's kind of like that I say the way that I try to explain it to them. It's like, Yeah. Do you still play the games that you were like when you were a teenager that seemed super fun or whatever? Maybe you don't. But eventually, as the years go by,
Yeah.
you're like, I've done it so much that it becomes stale because it's like, what is new? What else is new? So it's like, okay, let me do. I have other. Okay, I've tasted a lot of that, right? And I think
Yeah.
you have to, right? I think you have to, like have that experience, so you can then have a fill. You can go back, dip the toe here and there, right?
Yeah.
But then you can't wake up early in the morning and also be a night owl, like not unless you have a lot of cocaine, I guess. But even then, like you can't like I like waking up early now and going to the gym, right? But if I go out all night and drink, that's probably not gonna happen. But maybe it's just because I don't have the willpower to do it. But going hiking, just like sometimes groups like have things that they may not do that like people that are playing board games are not fucking doing coke and partying overall, right? People are doing karaoke, right? Like I go to karaoke now in Moondog Meadery, which you have a show coming up there.
Yes, tonight. Which obviously this isn't gonna air tonight, but
well, the live stream will.
Oh, it's live streaming right now. Should I take off my shirt?
Only this.
Too early?
Yeah.
Too
Where's
early?
Florida in here? Yeah.
Yeah, Dog Meadery. It's a improv stand-up show, and I recently did improv at Good Nights.
Yeah.
With Matt White. I did a 6-week course with him, and Taj and Weston Suggs and his girlfriend, and it was the best. I mean, I don't know if you've ever taken improv classes, but it is so much fun, and what it does for your comedy is just so perfect on stage, you know?
Like, I mean,
it's great.
I've been interested in what it does for your comedy, right? But improv by itself, right? Like, I've seen improv troupes. Isaac Woolsey, I had him on recently. He's the autistic kid murderer on stage, right? Like, he's so fucking funny. He's brilliant at that. But he was talking about, I think he did improv as well. And I think comics can benefit from doing improv probably. But improv people, to me, usually just seem just silly, like shitty comedy. It's almost like so incredibly performative. Sometimes it feels inauthentic. So please convert me. Like, what was your experience in improv?
I think you've seen some shitty improv.
Probably.
Because there's some fantastic improv out there.
And I'm sure you guys do, because everybody that you've mentioned, right? Like, I respect. I think they're very funny people.
Yeah.
Taj, Weston, Matt. I don't know if you mentioned anybody else, but I'm sure they're funny as well. But so I don't get it. Like, what? Like, now that you went through a 6-year course, maybe like, what was your view going in, and then what happened when you came out?
I have family members who've done improv in New York, and now they live in LA, and they're doing improv out there.
Okay.
And I've been to their shows in New York City. It's incredible because it's challenging. For me, it's more challenging than stand-up. It's way more challenging because stand-up, you're prepared. It might not be funny. You need to write better, but you got something you're going to say. It's in your mind. But here, you're working off of other people. You have to connect with people very quickly. So in that 6-week course, I had to connect with these 12 strangers, which I don't do often. I don't go to Harris Teeter and ask people how their day is. I like wear sunglasses inside. Like, don't talk to me. But it's challenging because not only do you have to put on a story just right there on the spot, but you have to keep it alive and moving forward and make it feel like it's been written before. I mean, for me, it's the challenge of it. But also, I mean, I think what you were saying earlier, how it seems silly and all that stuff. It is, because a lot of people take these improv courses for, like, some of them take it because they're like, my mom said I'm really shy. Like, some of them are young in the class, like they're taking it for different reasons. So you do have non-comics, people who don't have goals and passions like you and I doing it, which is
okay. I thought you were pointing that don't have goals and passions, and you pointed at me. So
no.
That's improv, baby.
I love it. I love when those people come around because it's like watching a little scared kindergarten. I'm like, no one's gonna hurt you. Just say it. Just be weird in here, like just let it fly.
Oh, yeah, I think that's what Isaac said, that improv kids are like the theater kids.
Yeah, it's like theater
like,
kids, but they're all like still like, their insecurities, they wear them on their shirt. And I'm like, it's okay. You're in a safe place. Just get weird,
Yeah. I think that's great. I think,
Yeah.
I think that, I think it's cool to be an introvert. I think there is cool to be an extrovert, right? Like extroverts sometimes need to know how to regulate the extrovertness in certain settings, right?
Facts, dude.
Like,
I'm such an extrovert. It's insane.
And similarly, like introverts, right? Regardless of that being your default mode, like the world works as it is. So you need to sometimes even fake it till you make it in certain situations, right? If you're supposed to do a sale or put on a presentation that is going to determine something that you want, then you can't say, "Oh, fuck it, I'm an introvert. I'm never going to be able to do this." I think it may be more difficult. It may be more challenging. It might not even come naturally, right? But it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like we've gotten to used to, it's like, oh, well, fuck it. This is how I am. And it's like, that kind of removes all personal responsibility to not even, like, how do you know if you haven't reached for it, right? Like, that's where I think the saying that man's reach exceeds his grasp, right? Like, it's like maybe you don't get there, but you might get further than where you thought you could get to, if that makes any sense. Like, so you loved it. That's great. You can recommend it, right? Like,
yeah. So tonight's show is, it's an improv show, essentially. I don't have a set. I'm just going to show up and have a good time. And like Matt, I've been taking his courses since 2019, and he sidebars coaches me still. Like he'll catch me doing a set somewhere and he'll just like say one or two things, which I just absorb it all. I do. And some people do that too. Some other comics come up to me, give me their advice. I don't ever not take advice. I mean, I'll take it in. I might not follow it, but who am I to say like, no, you don't know more than me? Like, I don't know what you know.
Agreed.
You know?
Yeah, like 100%. Especially if you think these people care about you, like why not listen to them?
Like,
hear them, Hear
you're
them
going to
out.
drive with your ego. You're not going to get far in that fucking car.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should always be receptive and know when not to take advice, because the negative side of that has happened, in my opinion, to Jim Payne. Happy belated birthday. I sent him a message, said happy birthday, where people, and once again, these cliques, I guess, it was more towards Rally or Ease Rally, that they're like, tell him that he can't do certain jokes. The first time I saw Jim Payne, he made this joke about dogs, but it was really like kind of like about Civil War, times and the breakup. It was brilliant because he all of a sudden told a story that it's like the subtext of it was like very funny, but like in a masterful way. And I don't know if it was that joke or something, but somebody told him that he can't be doing those type of jokes and that he heard that feedback. And I'm like, well, Jim, I'll ask you a question. If you look like me, could you do those jokes? Could you get away with them?
Yeah.
He's like, then there's no fucking problem with those jokes. Really, like there is no issue with those jokes. Like, I think like, and you're 35, right? So you're a millennial. You've seen like that. You used to be able to, because you can make, I think you can, there are racial jokes that you can make if you're not a racist, if you don't have any hate in your heart.
Yes.
That
agreed.
That it's funny, right?
Yes.
Like, but all of a sudden, people can, if they make a racial joke, people can label them as racist, especially if they're white. Especially if you're white, you can't and it's almost used as a tool to silence and like knock down and it's like you are funny. You're a funny comic.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact that you're a female comic, or me. Like, what if I was like, oh, I'm a funny minority comic? Fuck that. Like, I try to be a comic, like, measure me by the same rule they're gonna measure you. By the same rule they're gonna measure a white guy. Let the funnier jokes come up. Like, don't pigeonhole me into a thing.
Oh man, you see my body language change as you're talking
because
I don't know what your stance on this is, and mine is probably not a popular one, but I just don't fucking care. I don't know anyone anything, and I just think if you're going to go up to another comic and say, hey, you can't run jokes like that, you should fuck all the way off. Let them run the jokes. Let them see what happens when they run the jokes. If it offended you, get the fuck out of comedy.
100%.
Get the fuck out of comedy. If someone walked up to me and like your joke was offensive, I'm like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are you getting offended on that person? That's not who I am.
Yeah.
That is a persona. That is
Exactly.
a performance. That is a performance.
Exactly. That's a performance. This is not, you're not running a political campaign and
Get
saying,
out.
this is the shit that like.
Security. I can't. Even comics. I hear other comics say things. I just listen. A lot of people say things in front of me, and I just listen and I take it all in. And I hear comics. They're just like, "Oh, did you hear that joke so and so said?" And I was like, "Yeah, that shit was fucking hilarious. That was the darkest, inappropriate joke I've heard all week, and it hit like."
Yeah.
And it sucks when you say things like female comic, because I was talking to a couple female comics recently, and they were like, yeah, I was invited out to this show in a couple months, but it's an all-female lineup, and I don't want to get on shows where just because I'm a female. I was like, who are we to deny stage time? Like, you don't know who's in that audience, because we're like, you're making it. Sure, they want to represent women. What if it was like a show for all black people? Would you be like, well, I'm not going to go because like I'm not going just because I'm black? It's like, well, I'm going to fucking go support them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where's the line with that? Between that and the whole like, oh, you shouldn't run that set. Let them fucking run the set.
Yeah.
Let them see what happens when they run whatever they run. You know?
Well, let's put on an all male white comic showcase. I think it's called an open mic.
Yeah.
But once again, we're fucking North Carolina. There's a shitload of fucking white people, right?
Yeah,
like,
so many white people.
What do you expect? Like, put on whatever you want. But like, so for example, I don't think that these divisions are helping us. Like once again, like, it's like, I think comedy, right, can sometimes, really transform into art, right? Like, I wouldn't call myself an artist, but I try to do interpret things and out of my brain and my heart, and ideally, in its best iteration, what I put out is art, right? Like, but
of course,
it's
creating. It's art.
Creating, right? Like, my soul's right to breathe, like letting it, and making mistakes as part of that, right? How are you supposed to do that?
Failing.
And
Each part of it.
And especially like whenever they put, because it's a performance, right? Like,
it's a performance.
There is, you put in your art and there's an audience, right? There's like, if it hits and it doesn't hit, right? Like, not everybody's gonna like everything.
No.
Not everything can be mass appeal, right? So sometimes when they try to encapsulate, oh, don't do this, it's like, tell me that I can't do something, because you might not have me on again, but I am gonna go even harder than I would have gone if you had told me, okay, do whatever you like, just try to be mindful of the audience, and And I think we came up in a time. Did you ever watch Ace Ventura, filmed in Florida?
I can't believe you just asked me if I've
love
ever
that
watched
fucking movie.
Ace Ventura.
Of course you
I've
have.
never been so offended.
I'm sorry.
Damn.
I recently just rewatched
And then
it.
you followed up with telling me it was filmed in Florida? How
You're right,
dare
you're
you?
right. How dare I? Well,
Wow, I haven't been offended in a while.
I've been hanging out with too many Gen Zs
wild.
that like, for example, Harrison, Alex haven't seen Ace Ventura. I just showed Alex the other day for the first time Super Troopers.
Oh my God. I never get offended. I kind of like it. It feels cool. It's like,
yeah. Well, I did not mean to offend.
You did though. Of course. That's the whole reason I got into comedy. I watched Ace Ventura for the first time when I was a child, and I saw this person doing whatever he wants in a fucking pink tutu, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
100%.
That's what I want to do. I want to just look at him. He's being ridiculous in this whole movie. He's coming out of a rhino's butt naked.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
the first one. Like I rewatched him. Like, I still know this by heart.
Yes, you do.
Right? Where like there's one part where Lieutenant Einhorn's like, "Don't worry, Mr. Taro, we'll find the porpoise," and he's like, "Whew, now I feel better." Of course. That might not do any good. See, nobody's missing a porpoise. It's a dolphin that's been taken. He's like, the common harbor porpoise is an abrupt snout, pointed teeth, and a triangular thoracic fin, while the bottlenose dolphin, or Tursiops truncatus, has an elongated beak, round cone-shaped teeth, and a serrated dorsal appendage. But I'm sure you already knew that. That's what turns me on about you. Your attention to detail. And it's like, I grew up in this fucking movie.
I can't believe you just said that. That was perfect.
I 100% could recite this movie end to end, like an Andy Dwyer,
God, that was
Parks and
wonderful.
Rec. Thank you.
Sounded like a song.
But it's so good, and all of a sudden,
no,
like,
it's great.
I feel like this new generation of comics, Gen Z, there needs to be like a schooling of what 90s and early 2000s comedy was.
Yeah, like Richard Grier.
Yeah.
Arsenio Hall.
Yeah.
Even Eddie Murphy. They don't even know that Eddie Murphy came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's like the 90s comedy. That's just.
How are you supposed to, like, the world has a lot of ugly shit in it, and hurtful things happen, right? So if you can't laugh about the mysteries that happen, so like, you know, in a way that, oh shit, you know, like, what is the answer? Despair? Are you just supposed to like that's why I think sometimes dark shit is very funny, because it's like, okay, even though this is dark shit, there are joys in this world. There are things that, you know, that you can laugh
Yeah, absolutely.
about.
For sure. And you know what? My comedy is it's like 90% true. It's just, I just joke about my life I'm going through. My 5-10 minute, like I have like this little window of 5 to 10 minute sets that I'm constantly changing. Like I will always go to an open mic with new premises. I will sometimes try to, and then I'll go to an open mic, a couple different open mics with a couple different premises. And then all of a sudden it kind of works out into one joke I didn't see before, but I kept running, you know, like that's, and, oh shit, where was I going with that? Damn it, I just had something really good to say.
Yeah.
I hate when that happens. That's gonna infuriate me.
It's okay.
No. Damn, that
Open
sucks.
mics, new premises.
Oh shit.
Dark shit. That's
real.
dark
Shit. Thank you. That's where I was getting at. So some of my comedy is about grief. Some of it's about being a widow, and that stops a room. Like I'll start a joke with a widow, like the widow bit I'll go into, and you can feel some of them are like, oh shit, because they're like, oh fuck, she's a fucking widow. Like it's someone our age hearing that for the first time. It's jarring.
Yeah.
And I like to joke about that stuff, and I like to write about that stuff because it is healing. It's painful to say out loud, but I need to hear it out loud myself. And also, when in grade school, K through 12, did anyone teach you about death? Did anyone teach you about grief? Did anyone teach you how to handle the emotions? You are going to lose everyone you love. Everyone's going to die. You're going to die. Either they're going to lose you or you lose them. You know, I lost my parents and my husband. The next step is my siblings. So right now, my siblings are all healthy and happy, but I'm already I'm preparing to lose them because that's next in line for my kin.
Yeah.
And, you know, I write about it, and I'm so passionate about talking about it, even though it makes audiences uncomfortable, because if we did have these conversations and we made it normal, like life is a part of death, like in other cultures, life and death, it's so sacred, but we don't talk about it, but it's going to happen to everyone. We're actively dying. So it's, you know, the dark stuff that you're talking about, I'm here for it. I live for it. Let's talk about the dark stuff because we're all going to face it. How are
100.
we not going to talk about it? It's going to be way less painful if someone teaches us. If I knew now what I knew about grief before my parents died, oh my gosh, think about how much less painful that would have been.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, think about it. Like,
and your jokes, and you're refining them, right? You're working through the material, and then, like, you know, like, you're pretty hilarious, but then you're coming up with new jokes and refining them. Eventually, like, 100%, I think it can even be healing, right? Like, so for example,
super healing.
Like the jokes that like sometimes kill a room, and it depends on the room.
Yeah, of course.
Is when I make my racial jokes.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Like I have a joke that I make all the time. I think white people should be proud. You know, like not too proud, obviously. You know, like, and then I tell them like, you guys are the guys that came up with the words like wetback and Polak, like a lot of cuz, you know, like, and I'm like, and it's like a brown person. Like there's like. White comedians used to be able to make racial jokes, you know, like, and it's one of these things where it's like, if all of a sudden you can no longer have the dialogue, then I think people entrench themselves. People like become resentful. You're not making that racist any less racist by not engaging them. You're, if anything, radicalizing them more and polarizing them more. And you grew up in South Florida. Everybody mixes there. You know,
it's
like
such a mix.
Yeah, when I was younger, I could say the N word in Florida. You know, like, I didn't dress like this. I dressed. I was much closer to that Puerto Rican
Bro, I'm
Hispanic.
not even black, and I'm like,
Yeah. Well, I used to work in a black. I used to work in a black bar in Sunrise.
I don't think that's a good excuse to say.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong.
I have a black friend that said I can. Like, that's what you sound like right now.
I'm not saying that I can, but I'm saying, like, in the context of that time, it wasn't. I think Drake fucked this all up. But you used to be able to sing, let's say, Juvenile. You used to be able to sing songs that had the word in it. And all of a sudden, that is no longer, like, songs that are mass produced, that you cannot recite certain words in it because of what? The word in itself is bad? Like, all of a sudden, like, you know, like, I think words change meaning throughout time, right? Like, for example, we came up and, like, I've had a gay roommate. I have nothing but love for, I'm like, do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Like, you know, have all the freedoms that we have. Do whatever the fuck you want, whether I agree with it or not. Like, I've, like, woken up in my couch hearing, like, my roommate and his boyfriend fuck. You know, noises that were very, like, alien to me. But I'm like, oh, whatever, you know. Like, and when they broke up, I'm like, you know, I hope you find your nice prince. Hopefully he has a big cock, you know. Like, no problem. Do whatever you want, right? And I think, and I can have that point of view and still think that when we used to wear, like, gay, because it's not the same meaning of the word gay when you're, like, you know, like, just like the word fuck has different meanings. You could be like fuck or like fuck you. You're still using the same word in two completely different contexts. And I think language is a lot more contextual. And I think that, you know, like, I don't know that silencing and all of a sudden, like, excluding people for words said can be a teaching moment. I don't think it brings us any more together. I think it sows more division, and it gets in the way of the ability for people to learn. You know, like, would I ever, like, you know, like, when I was in high school, I used to say the N-word at my white friends. You know, like, and maybe that's just because it was, like, you know, like the 90s, back that ass up was, like, you know, and the thing, you know, like Fat Joe, like, I used to listen to all this shit, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if I ever offended somebody, I would feel incredibly terrible because it would have been never aimed to offend, much like a dirty joke is never aimed to offend anybody, right?
Yeah.
And it's a gray area, right? So I think there needs to be a conversation about it before the crucifixion of somebody. I don't know.
Yeah. Instead of crucifying someone, like, teach them because they didn't know better.
Yeah.
Or, like, they're just unaware or not woke. Or, I get that. I was raised with a super racist stepdad. And it sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, the way he talked about black people and people of color, because I would go to school. Mm-hmm. My best friend was black. My best friend was Brazilian. My best friend, she didn't speak English when I met her in school. She just moved from Brazil. And, I mean, like, just everyone was Cuban or Colombian and Puerto Rican in my schools, like, all throughout school. And I never saw color. They were just my friends. I just saw some of them were faster or stronger, and I wanted to be faster or stronger. My friend Tiffany, my best friend, she was black. She was taller than me. Like, that's what I remember of her. I wish I had her height, you know? Like, And then to go home and hear, like, the most foul things. Yeah. So in my experience, I grew up with someone who used the N-word in, like, the most horrific way, not even trying to sing a song. Like, it was horrible. Yeah. It sucked. It sucked a lot because, like, it was, like, gut-wrenching. I'm like, man, I go to school with these, like, really cool people. Like, and I go to their houses, their parents. You know, my Brazilian friend, her mom would yell at me in Portuguese. She's like, you need to eat more. Like, she would yell at me in Portuguese, you know? And I'm like, I immediately had to go to the kitchen to eat, you know? But it's, like, real, authentic Brazilian food. Yeah. It's Indian food, you know, Mexican food. Like, it's just, it sucks. So, I don't know, maybe in a world where racism didn't run the world, because I think it still fucking does, sucks. But maybe words can be used differently. But
you think that racism runs the world?
I think it runs this country.
How so?
I hear racist shit all the time. I hear the most racist shit. The most racist shit. Jewish people hear the most racist shit about Jewish people. just like black people here are the most racist about black people. You know, it's like people find out I'm Jewish and they say the most terrible things. And I imagine it's the same for black people. Like, oh, you're black? Is that your real hair? Like that's, people say
Really?
it so naturally.
Okay.
I hear that shit all the time. And I have friends who like tell me what people say to them. And they just stand there and they're like used to it. They're like, the things that people say to me. I mean, it's, you know, like, oh God, it sucks. Yeah, I think so. Especially in this country, especially in the South still. Like, what's the like the most woke South country or city in your opinion? Like in all of the South, like which one? There's liberal cities like Raleigh's blue. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, the wokest, at least, you know, I haven't lived in all the South, but I would say Carborough.
where is that? Is that in North Carolina?
It's like in Chapel Hill.
Oh,
like,
really?
It's like the south side of Chapel Hill, you know, like it's like compared to Carborough, Chapel Hill is like Durham.
Yeah.
You know, like but it's like you know, it's a lot of the time I see like, listen, I don't think, and this is the thing, right? I think we live in a world where we're it's very easy to look at good guys and bad guys, right? Do people say racist shit? Sure.
Yes.
100%. I won't disagree with you there. Now, I think there is a big gap between a word and an action. I think if you are a qualified person, and I work in tech, you know, like, and I worked in the oil field, you know, like where in Oklahoma, where I used to like do this dude that we were like, it was three white guys. Well, one was half native, right? But like, you know, they're listening to Five Finger Death Punch, right? Trucks, you know, like, or whatever, that on paper would have had all the things that would be like, oh, these may be kind of racist guys. I am a Hispanic person, you know, like I have a joke, right? I used to be white in South America and then crossed the border and became a brown Mexican, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's one of those things where it's like, that he's like, he started talking about like gay guys. It's like, oh well, you know, like they're not like us. They're more like women. I'm like, first of all, I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, do you know any gay people? I'm like, I do, by the way. And I'm like, I think you're mistaken on this. I'm like, you know, like let me put it to you this way. You know, the feeling that you get, you know, when you meet a beautiful woman, right? You want to take her out or whatever, and all these things, right? Like all the masculine things, you know, like that's a gay guy, except he feels it for a man. Like it doesn't make them a woman.
It's not a choice.
Like, you know, like it doesn't make them a woman. Like the things that you feel inside, they're also men. You know, like men that have a different, you know, like sexual attraction. But that doesn't make them, like, it's not like, oh, because they're a different flavor of man makes them not men. They might like men, you know, like, but you like women. Like, there is no difference there, right? And it's a teachable moment. And I was not going to, like, you know, like, and, you know, but I think you can only build that bridge if the person trusts you and thinks that you're operating in good faith, right? And this is why I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of things that we can agree on, and through those things that we can agree on, you develop the relationship so that you can trust that the other person's like, oh well, they seem perfectly reasonable on all these things. We agree on all these things. Like, it allows you to actually listen to the things that you don't agree about, but you can't start the conversation like, oh, you're wrong and whatever. And then how are you ever going to bridge that gap? You're just going to get more polarized.
No, that's right.
And so I think, you know, like you know, I have like, once again, I don't like, you know, and this is not, I don't, similarly to Florida, I think growing up in Florida, there's something where it's like black, white, Hispanic, you know, Asian, like, you know, like gay, trans, or whatever, right? Like I have friends across the spectrum, right? Might we have disagreements politically between rules applied to the whole populace?
Yeah.
Right? Probably, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't respect them and that I would not defend them personally, right? But then there's a difference between the interpersonal thing and like, so if somebody sees me out on the street that I don't know, it's like, oh yeah, that Mexican guy. Do I need to go up to him? He's like, listen, I am not Mexican, you know, like, or whatever. Fuck you. You have literally nothing in my in my life, right? Now, if all of a sudden, like, we're in a group of friends and then he says that Mexican guy, right? Then now we're dealing interpersonally, right? Like, you just like if you wanted to be called Christy instead of Kristen, right? Like, I'm gonna be like, no, Kristen, You know, like, or if I'm like, my name is Arturo, you keep calling me Jose. Well, now you're not really respecting our interpersonal choice, right? Like, um, and I think, and it's blurry. I think it's so fucking blurry and gray that I think, I don't know, leading with love and understanding is probably the better thing, because how are you gonna be? Let's say that guy that you know, like I always make this thing that I'm like, I much rather have a racist piece of shit next to me, right? That maybe doesn't want to be my friend, but it's like, oh, you know what? Then you know, this guy, there's this Mexican guy next door, but you know what? He's all right. You know, he helped me. You know, like with my like pushing, like move my couch in the other day, right? And he may not even like my race or whatever, right? But he may like, all of a sudden, he may be more open to the idea of me, and through that, he gets into a window, right? Like, because I think there's two types of racism. Having lived in Oklahoma, Boston, right? Like Pennsylvania, Florida, Venezuela, Peru, there is racism out of ignorance, which I don't consider a sin, let's say, right? Like, not that it's right necessarily, but if you were pattern making machines, if you don't know that many people from a particular class or group, you might make generalizations about them based on your limited experience. Does that make you an overt racist? Not in my book. But if now you do know these people and then you still hate them, right? And because they're different, then that's a choice of choosing to be racist, right? So, for example, I'd much rather have that, you know, the ignorant racist guy that doesn't know many Hispanics because it has an idea about him, like, you know, are we loud? Maybe, sure. You know, like I think it's part of the romantic language in a much more expressive way. You know, like multiple. It's a gender language, so there's like diminutive and, you know, chiquito, grandote. You know, like there's a lot of culture that gets transferred along with that language, and I think maybe that adds to the volume, like festivities, and that he's like, oh yeah, no, that all of a sudden that he maybe has a bunch of racist friends. Like, no, but you know, he's a good guy. You know, like. Let's say, even though he's Mexican, he's a good guy or whatever, even though I'm not Mexican, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think that opens the door. Because now all of a sudden, this other white guy's like, oh, well, this guy's one of us. He's cool with that. We might have this thing. And maybe through more exposure that is built, maybe not, then the lady that, the woke lady that's down the street, that all of a sudden, like, you know, I blow up some fireworks on July 4th. Instead of coming talking to me, she's like, those are not the rules. The fireworks are illegal, and I'm going to call the cops on you.
She called the cops on you for fireworks?
No. But there was something that, like, these ladies in this neighborhood that wanted to call the cops.
You think it was because you're of...
I didn't do it. It was some other people. But I'm saying that kind of, like, from afar, like, probably has one of those signs, oh, we accept everybody, but it's so critical, like, of the rules and not bridging that gap. And it's like where it's like, it's much more judgmental, but with a face of, oh, I you know, I believe I include everybody and whatnot. But it's like, I don't know. I'd much rather have a person that, you know, that I know is racist, because you know how they stand, than the person that pretends to be for all these causes and an ally to everything. Well, what are you really like?
Yeah. Oh, man. Racism just infuriates me. I can't. I can't even cater to it. I can't.
So,
it's like,
so the
it
distinction...
is black and white line for me. Like
pun. That's a pretty good pun.
Well, that's terrible. I don't know. I've just experienced... I mean, I've been spit on for being Jewish.
Yeah.
I've been someone physically spit on me because I'm Jewish. Like,
I've been racially profiled and put in handcuffs.
So like and the stories that people tell me and what I've watched. I mean, I was at Publix downtown Raleigh 2 days ago, and the manager was following around 3 black kids. There was nothing. They were just grocery shopping. But wise, you know, they didn't look. They just looked like They were probably in their early 20s.
Yeah.
They were talking, looking at stuff, doing what everyone else is doing, and he was just like this, watching these 3 kids. And I'm like, you know, I don't know the whole scenario. Maybe they did steal from here before. I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to involve myself, but it just looks like it sucks already.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other people in here. You don't know who's stealing what. Like, it's,
that's true.
I don't know. It just sucks. Like, I get what you're saying. You're like, all right, he's kind of racist, but like, he's not like, hang him in a tree. I don't know. But I've just experienced so many terrible people that I don't want any part of it. I don't want any of my friends, if they're racist, I'm not aware of it. I haven't heard it. If I found out someone was racist and I called them a friend, like, no, bro, I don't need it. I don't. It's, you're swimming against the current. We're all one race. We're all one human family. You know, that's like that's the theme of Key West. They have bumper stickers and T-shirts that say "one human family." They drive on it. That's their catchphrase. It's
Well, and this is the thing. I completely agree with you there.
Yeah.
I guess in the way that I come at it, it's like I am not so. It is not that I want to protect certain words. I am not crazy about policing speech because it's kind of like one of like the Iraq War, right? Like you set a precedent. There's the marketing and the reality. It's like, okay, we're gonna market this. And it's like, yeah, everybody agrees with this, so let's make the rule. But then we can use this rule and apply it to other scenarios that perhaps people don't agree with. And all of a sudden we've set the precedent, right? Like I think racism is stupid. I think because just scientifically, there is like I think there's like pretty much almost no race because if you have 200 generations live somewhere, they will change. Like that's how races develop. Why are white people white, right? Because they're like, and I have this joke about snow monkeys, right? They're in the mountains. If you're at a higher altitude, right, like or less or higher latitude, and there is less sun, you don't need as much melanin in your skin. So through generations, your body will adapt at like trying to bring in as much of the vitamin B into your stream, so you're not blocking it with tanness or blackness. Whereas if you have generations that develop in equatorial latitudes, then guess what? You are getting too much sun if you had white skin, and you will develop cancer and you will die out. So generationally, through mutations, you will adapt, or the 200 generations down, you will probably have a lot darker skin than the original settlers had because of adaptation to your environment, right? So it's like you can't but we live in one one only lifespan. So I think people are like it's hard to see it through generations and large spans of time, the adaptation, right? Like, and it's and I guess, and once again, I could be wrong, right? But we should study history, right? But I think we can let things. There are all kinds of injustices that happen to all of us, right? And it's a matter of moving forward. Like, do we become victims of what happened, or do we become survivors of what happened? Because I think the mindset is going to give you in the future drastically different results. Like I could be bitter, oh, the fucking cops like racially profiled me, or all of a sudden because I'm Hispanic, I've been treated a particular different ways at different points in my life, right? It's like, okay, there's time limited and that resource is limited, so I can focus all my time in feeling victimized by that, or I can focus all my time in like, what can I do about my situation? What is within my control, and how can I move ahead? Like, what does the future look like? And I just see this country just being at this point of victimization where like we don't even see what could be, where it's like we're so scarred by our past that we no longer, and the internet's not helping because we've lost the ability to forget and move on. Like we no longer can forget. Anything from 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years is brought back in your face, and all of a sudden it's like a scab that you're constantly picking at. You're never allowed to heal. If you're never allowed to heal, how can you move forward?
People can't move forward because people are trying to keep it alive right now. It's still an active fight. It's still an active. I mean, think about how many laws have recently changed for like women's rights.
Yeah.
LGBT, immigrant rights. Like it's happening. History repeats itself.
But
I don't think they're picking at scabs. I think they fucking see the writing on the wall. Everyone sees it right now. Like it's all.
I would challenge that with, as a woman, is there any period in time that you would prefer to go back where things were better for women?
When, besides today, when was a better time in history for women? When was a better time in history for women? Was it in the 90s when they were just secretaries and they weren't taken seriously, or the 60s when like they couldn't have a job? Like I don't think.
This is what I'm saying, right? I think and this is why I'm pushing back on it, is that I think focusing on the challenges, like, there are no solutions in life from my experience. There are only trade-offs, right? And that's why I always pose the question, okay, well, if right now it's so bad for minorities, immigrants, I'm a minority immigrant, let's say women, I don't have the experience of women, right? When is a better time? If the answer, like, when we would like to go back, I don't know if it's been any better for immigrants. Like, my friend just moved from Peru. He lives in New York. There are so many, like, he's getting a work permit. There are so many things that are now available for him that were not available for my mom when we moved here.
Yeah.
So I don't see a better time, and once again, we have to address the challenges of the future, right? But is there a time where I would go back to where immigrants and there was more acceptance for immigrants and other races than today? Now, especially if we turn off the news, in real life, in opportunities for jobs, and that's why I mentioned, right? Like, I think sometimes we focus on the challenges still to solve and forget on the progress that we made, and that can be counterproductive to the progress that we've made, because and that's why I ask you, I'm like, is there a time that you would go back to that you feel was better for women?
I think women are gonna no, because women.
And I'm not saying things are perfect for women right now.
No,
Like,
but
let me
women
know
are
that.
gonna continue the fight that women started in the 50s and 60s
Yeah.
to have our own bank accounts, our own license to work. Like, we'll stop when there's equality. Black people will stop fighting for their rights when there's equality. Like, it's real fucking simple. This is our world. It's like, we make up the rules, but all the wrong people are in charge. It's not gonna.
So is
not
it really
stop
a coup?
until
It's a coup, or is it really equality? Because this is where I kind of like see the challenge, right? It seems like if the country, right, like, once again, generations that are now, like, in my opinion, the real war has always been poor versus rich. Like, I think the wealthier you get, like, the challenges, right, like, of stereotypes and whatnot, because once again, you break the stereotype, right, all of a sudden you've attained wealth and success and whatnot, start dissipating. And I think these wars of, like, minorities versus white people, right, like, which I disagree with, like, war between men and women, I think sometimes are actually a distraction at keeping us, Sun Tzu, divide and conquer, at each other's throats, consuming more things, buying more memorability that directly appeals to our tribe, right? So, and that's why, as a
keeping
minority,
us fighting on this level.
right? And once again, I don't think that like, that the movement forward for equality really should stop. But I am wary of when the I'm not even call it a fight. The search for equality is just aimed at destabilizing the status quo, because then all of a sudden, like, there are things about the way of things that have allowed us to move forward, right? Like, I was talking about this with Harrison yesterday. I don't think liberalism is all good. I don't think conservatism is all good. I think that it's a balance, right? Like, liberalism allows you to move forward, to change, right? Kind of like a mutation. It allows you to change your DNA in a sense. Conservatism allows you to maintain some things as they are, kind of like taking a step forward, right? If you are never catching your balance, you may fall, right? And that's, the purpose of liberalism and moving things forward. But if you never move forward, let's say hyper conservative, then you're stuck in the same place, right? And I think they're complementary items that need to be remain in balance, because you need to have straight footing sometimes before you take a step forward and then move the other step forward and move the other step forward. If you never move, you're stagnant. If you just, like, jump around, like, and from rock to rock, you might lose your balance and fall and break something that you did not want broken, right? Like, there's this risk reward. And I feel like right now we're very like, because of this polarity of it, like easy to tell, no, you're wrong, the world has moved on, and fuck your values, and we're all in one ship. So how do we bridge that gap and cut each other some slack, I guess, allow us each other to learn? I mean, we're not going to find the answer here, by the way, spoiler alert, anybody is watching, but I don't know.
I think we should just live life the way other species do. I was watching the Animal Planet
Like
yesterday.
fucking in front of each other, like
no,
naked?
not like that. I mean, we can. There are places for that, I've heard. But I think we should just, like they'll have kids, they'll have a baby, and then they'll just immediately leave. Like, we're not, how come we're not after these species? You know what I mean? Like, they are just abandoning their children. I don't know. I saw that yesterday with a couple different species where they just have a kid. They're like, figure it out. Mm-hmm. Find your own meal, your first meal. I'm like, wow, we are different. We are so different. Like, we're not holding them accountable, like we should.
Well, I'll tell you. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we talked about this yesterday, and therein lies the difference, right? That a human, and this is, I have something against like everybody like, oh, people know what they are for, like, children know exactly what's best for them as they're coming out. The difference between most animals and us is that we don't come out fully formed. A horse, an elephant comes out knowing how to be a horse or an elephant, pretty early on, right after they're born.
Yeah, like a giraffe will start walking.
Yeah, whereas a human being is still
like
developing.
This, like a giraffe.
yeah. The higher brain functions and neocortex is still developing until we're 25. So we're a much more fragile species when we're younger. So we require a little bit of rearing, kind of I'm used this example like a tree. My mom used to use this example, like a tree. You love to see a full tall tree with all its branches getting as much sun as it can, but a tree can get crooked early on, and if you don't put some stakes around that base, the tree will never grow into the tree that it can become. It is almost like hampered by crookedness if it is not at some point given the chance to correct it. And I think that is like an emblematic analogy of like kind of like one of the parts that we're going wrong. Like for example, how are you, and like to take into account some of the stuff that's going on in France, how are you supposed to hold the society together if you have no common societal things, right? So, for example, as somebody was born in Peru, like I consider myself an American. I'm an American citizen and whatnot, right? Like it is in order to have a country, I think that there needs to be some level of assimilation. Like you can't just overtake the native culture, because then you're not really blending. I think you should be proud of your heritage, and then you need to you understand like the culture that you're mixing into, so that you can understand it as an insider and then bring your knowledge yourself and create these beautiful fusion things moving it forward. But if you reject the culture that you're moving into because you find yours as superior or that needs to hold more weight, why are you even assimilating to this culture? And I think that there's a lot of like, I see this divide. Like I've always been against people like sporting their flags of their country. It's like, well, what country are you in? What is like, and people don't even realize what is the meaning of a flag? What is the origin of a flag, right? Why do we have such emblematic in the Star Spangled Banner that our flag remain so emblematic? It's almost like it's a tribal thing in a certain way. And it's like, okay, well, are you American? Or are you something else, right? Like, and do we have the mutual connective tissue to be one people and find the richness in all of our backgrounds? Or are we being like, no, this culture needs to, move out of the side because I moved here, or I feel this way and I want to like, I completely understand how some people would feel threatened. It's like, okay, well, I'm all for diversity and immigrants moving here, but then I feel as a son like they're telling me that my culture is bad. Let's say I'm pretending to be like, an American, let's say conservative at the time, right? It's like, I could see their distress, I could see their distress, and not that it's right or wrong, but like, where is the bridge there?
Yeah. I think that, well, I know that I am a huge hippie. I know what I look like. Mm-hmm. I look like a biker chick because I am one.
Yeah, you
but
love bikes.
I'm the biggest hippie. Like internally, I have dreads and I have like really hairy armpits.
You should get dreads.
No, I can't. It would be, my ancestors would curse me. I have the
It'd be
best.
like the 90s. It would be very in vogue if you're in the 90s, you know?
Yeah.
Get some blonde dreads, you know?
I have the best hair in my family. Like my siblings, my hair dries like this. I took a shower not too long before I came here. Like
Hell yeah.
it would be a dishonor to my my ancestors if I did that. But I am such a hippie, like to the core of who I am. In my mind, I'm like, I just don't understand why we all just can't get along. Like I'm that much of a hippie. I'm like, it's so stupid. We're fighting over the dumbest things. It's all so stupid. It could all be so simple, but there's just greed and all that nonsense. So,
greed.
I just turned to comedy. I close my ears a lot. I do. Like, I don't watch the news once a day. I don't read the news once a day. I
think we'd be better off if people didn't watch the news.
I'll catch up on it like once a week because it's too much negativity. And I think that I know that right now there's so many people like on their journey and they're healing and and there's a lot of inner work and shadow work happening, like a broad energy of that happening right now. And it's like, the news is not there to help you. It's like breaking news, big red letters. It's like, oh shit,
Yeah. It's meant to compromise you emotionally, so that then you're like in despair or in anger or scared, right? And then you're like, okay, everybody's scared. We need to do something about this, right? Like and I remember the America where it's like, like that's what I'm saying. Listen, I'm all for doing whatever the fuck you want, but it seems like now everybody has to become a prophet of whatever the fuck they believe and try to convert as many people into what they believe. It's like, and if you don't believe what they believe, it's like, what? Are you against what I believe? No, but does it need to? Do I need to fucking subscribe and become a fucking prophet? Like this whole fucking concept of like, if you're quiet, you're an aggressor. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like that is literally what the fucking Taliban does. That's what extremist groups do. They force you, they polarize you. How dare you not act this way? Oh, what? Do you not believe in Allah or whatever? Oh, if you believed in Jesus, you would act like this. Like, fuck you. Let me live my life. Like, listen, no problem believing that, but it's like, why does everybody have to become a prophet, right? Like, why does everybody? Because all of a sudden that leads into our tribal nature, and then we're at war with each other.
Yeah. If you had to become a racist group, what would your racist group, or not your terrorist group, like what would your radical group name be? Like if you had to. And they're like, all right, you now have to become a bad guy in life. Here in America, you have to become a bad guy. What's your bad guy name?
Well, the thing is, like, I'm not a good guy. I'll tell you that. I am.
So then, what's your name?
I call it el francotirador, right? Like I call it like it's the sharpshooter, right? Like there's this quality. I mean, like, and I'll tell you, like, I am a bully. Like, I really have a distaste for people that take advantage of people that can't defend themselves, because they're in a higher status, in a higher societal thing. Like, if I see that, or because they think they're more intelligent than the other person, I have such a fucking allergy for that, that I will bully the bully to no end until they feel the pain that they cause. It's not a heroic quality whatsoever, because it's not a good that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But there's trade-offs in life, and I'd rather take that path because at least the other person that was getting a shit out, they're laid off. They are like no longer the target. Now this bully is focused on defending itself against me. And guess what? I have an internal fortitude where I can handle it. Like that's fine. It's nothing to be admired and whatnot, right? So, for example, and sometimes this has. I think people should just be honest with themselves, right? If that's what you like or whatever, don't bullshit yourself. Don't bullshit me, like whatever. We agree to disagree. I'll give you an example. I used to have this friend that was really more like an acquaintance, but we're in the same group in high school in Florida, right? She used to have this boyfriend that eventually became her husband that was like a skater kid. We're all punk rock kids. We're all in the same group, right? And didn't really do much, and then eventually he joined the Navy, I think in his mid-20s or whatever, right? And we were arguing on Facebook, right? The best place to argue.
Oh my gosh!
About me
How
and
2000s of you?
well, yeah. Well, not me and her, but it was this conversation about the military. And I'm like, listen, there's, like we need to have a military, but there's a lot of like overspending, right? Because military budgets are, if you don't spend all your budget, then you don't get it next year, right? And we were just having an honest conversation. I think maybe it was also during like, I'm like, look at what happened with the Iraq war, right? Like, let's not pretend that we don't get lied to. And then and I understand her position. She had to defend herself. She's like, yeah, well, I'm for the heroes of this country. And like, haven't been basically, there's a lot of people that go with the heroic thing, but we have a lot of mercenaries, a lot of people that just want to kill people as well, right? Like, so there are certain things like I'm for the draft, because then you would have a duty to your country, not just the military preying on impoverished nation, like areas of the country and minorities and tying them up to be fucking shipped overseas so BlackRock can make more money. But so we're having a discussion and she's like giving me this bullshit about like, oh, like such a like, pontificating like, oh yeah, like for the troops or whatever. I'm like, listen, your fucking husband was a fucking loser that didn't do jack shit, and eventually he had no other fucking option, and he joined the fucking Navy. So let's not pretend that he joined because of some heroic thing. He was a loser that didn't do anything, and now he's there. And I understand that you're his wife and that you have to defend him, but don't fucking come with this bullshit. And she is like, "How dare you?" I'm like, sorry, baby. That's the reality of it. Don't try to pretend that your fucking husband had this goddamn, because he didn't do it while he was trying to do playing a fucking band, do all this other bullshit. And he had no other chance. He had to become an adult. And the easiest way that he could do to gain some respect and some fucking clout was join the military. So don't give me this fucking bullshit. Obviously, she blocked me and we're no longer friends. But this is where I mean that they're like, yeah, I aimed right at our heart.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a nice thing, but I was like, I have this very like distaste for bullshit, and then trying to portray to everybody this is bullshit. Okay, let's tear this fucking curtain down and let's see things for what they really are. I have the capability of being an asshole 100%. I don't mean to be, and I don't lead with that, right? But if you're trying to bullshit everybody and try to portray some facade, I will be an asshole about it. And guess what? Like, I'm the type of crazy person that I'll sink this boat with both of us in it. I don't care. Like, I may lose, but you're going to lose something too.
You're like the perfect guy to go on the Titanic with.
Yeah.
Like, I got on this boat ready to die.
It's...
I think that's interesting what you said about people signing up for the internet. Listen to me, Jesus. Fucking Facebook fights, dude. That people sign up for the military because they want to kill. I never thought about it like that. We have legal killers.
Yeah.
We have legal killers. That's a cool shirt. That would be a cool shirt for 4th of July. We have legal killars.
Let's say you live in a little shitty town of North Florida, right? Where like, what's your option? Work at Waffle House, work at Walmart. What are your prospects?
Be a legal killer.
Yeah. Or you could join the military, and guess what? You're going to get some respect. Like you're going to be functional member of society. Thank you for your service, right? It's an easy fucking choice. It's an easy choice.
I had a situationship on an airplane from Florida with a guy in the military. He's out at, near Wilmington or Fayetteville or something. Yeah. One or the other. He's doing something out there. And he's been in the military for 10 years. He was 35.
Yeah.
And he was telling me how he's been deployed a few times. We had a whole situationship. Like, it was this whole thing. It was pretty entertaining, actually. But I was like, this guy's a walking red flag. But he's like, we should hang out. Like, can I get your number right before we landed? And I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. I don't care about. I'm not weird about my number. Have it. I don't care. And I was like, just out of curiosity, how many times have you accidentally punched a girlfriend in the past? And he goes, without skipping a beat, he goes, 3 times in my sleep. Why do you ask? I'm like, just curious.
He's like, not enough times.
He's like, I just woke up and he's like, the light came in. There was a car that passed and it came in through the blinds. And next thing you know, I was strangling her. I was like, when do you want to go to dinner? Like,
You're like, sounds kind of hot.
He was, he's on my Instagram. He's probably watching this.
Yeah, I mean, men also
he hit me up the other day. I was like, man, if only you didn't like punch bitches in their sleep. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just can't do that. I'm too pretty to get punched. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, like, just like in this thing, like, I feel like there's so many men and women that are living just this realities where like men like that would be incels, they're like getting red pilled, and it's like almost on like they become such assholes that they don't understand. There may be certain things about being masculine they need to keep, but it's like they've overcorrected. They've gone on the other side, like, and I don't know. I think to anybody that's watching it, right, like vulnerability is where everything in any relationship is, right? You should respect yourself, know where you stand and know where you are or you don't.
Yeah, it's really hard for people to be vulnerable.
And if somebody does something that you don't like, you don't have to stay in it. You can't. I'm a big proponent that people don't change. People change. There's usually only one caveat: trauma. Trauma moves you out of your lane or whatever life you were living.
Yeah.
And it gives you the opportunity, if you use it, to make real changes in your life.
If you face it.
If you face it.
I know people who have a lot of trauma that they're not working on, and I've been in therapy for 7 years now. I do so much work behind the scenes as far as healing and working through trauma and feeling feelings, and people drive with their unhealed trauma subconsciously, and they don't realize it. And I see it. I see it a mile away, and I'm like, I can't tell them. They're just not ready. And some I have told recently, and they weren't ready. And it's hard to sit someone down when they're opening to you, and you listen, and you say, well, that was a bit of gaslighting on your part, or you're projecting there. People can't look in the mirror. It takes a lot of courage, and if everyone just, it's hard. You have to feel the pain. I listen. I have PTSD. I don't talk about this. I'm very private with my grief, and I have panic attacks and PTSD, and I'm doing everything. I'm all natty, baby.
Yeah.
I don't have depressants. I don't have none of that stuff. I'm working. I'm doing this very holistically, which I don't fucking recommend, and it's hard, and
but you're cognizant of it. I think the one thing that facing it, you're aware, like, and sorry to interrupt you, like, that you're aware of it. So every day, since you're aware of it, it sucks, but at least it allows you to work towards it. I think people bullshit themselves, and then they will not be aware. So, saying this to myself makes me feel better, and then they never face it, and then they just carry it along, right?
Yes, having the awareness I have is a huge responsibility. I don't know anyone else in my life that's as aware as I am, and nobody knows what I know. There's all these comics I see 3, 4, 5 times a week. They know what I want them to know of me, and the perception of me, like they don't really know me. I said some real shit. I say real shit all the time, but I opened up last week to a comic, and he was like taken back. He's like, I didn't know you talk like that. I didn't know. I was like, oh, you have, I'm so protective of my awareness, because you have to be. You can't, it's almost inhumane for me to sit there and drive with the awareness, because you can't force someone to look at themselves. I've learned that the hard way. You can't, if you're going to be someone's friend who hasn't looked at themselves, who is unaware of how unaware they are, you have to hold a safe place for them. And just like what you were saying about relationships.
They'll react violently if you do.
Just like what you were saying about relationships, I had the most successful marriage. My marriage was so successful because we both kept each other, we held each other accountable. Just like everything you were saying about, how you were describing things earlier, and how you were conveying where you are and how you think a relationship, we both were on that same page, but it didn't start out that way. I approached my husband and I was like, listen, like, this is how marriages, partnership, friendship, you could apply this to any relationship. This is how relationships end, or they break, or they stop, is because one person is growing and the other one isn't. You don't have to grow the same way. No two people will grow the same way. But if one person is actively working on themselves and the other one's staying right here, it's never going to work. And my husband heard that, and he started doing inner work, shadow work, therapy, and we were on our own paths together.
That's beautiful.
And that's the thing. Like, if I have this awareness that it feels impossible to put into words. It feels impossible to describe it. But for me to drive with that awareness and to force that on people, like, hey, you're projecting, you're gaslighting, you're a fucking narcissist. Like, who am I to do that? Like, I have to hold a safe place for them, because if they're opening up and telling me where they are, and then I don't nurture that and acknowledge that, and validate that, then I'm not driving with love. I'm not driving with the awareness that I have. So it's a responsibility being aware, man. Being this healed. It's hard out here. It's so hard.
I mean, we're all flawed human beings. And I think like being aware of that, it's like being aware of that is the thing that allows you to change.
Yep.
You know, like, you know, the truest words have not been said.
Yeah, man. That's like my life. I don't talk about behind the scenes in my life. Like, I don't talk about when I present myself. I don't go out unless I'm my best self. Mm-hmm. I don't. And because I go out every time I leave my house, I go out with intention. And I have to drive like that because I'm devastated. I'm hollow. I'm going to be hollow for the rest of my life.
You think so?
Yes, I'm going to fill love and life around that hollowness, but there's a hollow in me that's never going to be able to be filled.
Do you feel that you're tying the hollowness to the love that you had for your husband, and that if you let go of that hollowness, that you'd be letting go of him?
I can't let go of it. It's not something I'm holding on to.
Okay.
It's there. It's the one loss that I think we're all going to lose our parents and our siblings, right?
Yeah.
But to lose your partner, and there was no shake in our marriage. No one was unhappy. Do
you see a future where you could find somebody to love again?
Yeah, I love love. I love to be, when you experience love and partnership the way I did, you crave it, you want it. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. We built something together, and it was fucking magical. I married the most magical person I've ever met in my entire life. Mm-hmm. And it was such a gift. I mean, the gift that he gave me, he showed me my self-worth. He showed me how to love myself. Like, I was none of those things before him. So I love love. It's just going to be different now. It's because also, people have asked me out recently. Some people trying to shoot their shot. But the thing is, the person that I'm going to date has to have the most compassion and empathy and be confident in who they are, because I'm never going to fall out of love with my husband. Like, I know I'm going to get married again and I will have a husband again, but I'll always love my other husband. I'll always celebrate his birthday and our wedding anniversary. You don't fall out of love with someone. You don't fall out of love with your parents when they
especially because it was like just ripped away.
He was ripped.
Not,
we had a whole day. He was a little sick for a few weeks before. We knew it. His ex-wife knew it. He was stubborn. He didn't go to the doctor, but we just had a normal day, and then a massive heart attack. Just a massive heart attack that happened in 20 seconds, and he was gone. It was like the blink of an eye, and everything changed. My whole life, everything. So I do want to love again. I love love. I love being in love. I love seeing my friends in love. I have friends that are. I have a handful of friends right now that are super in love. My siblings just got married. I couldn't make it to one of their weddings, which was devastating. But emotionally, I wasn't strong enough. But,
I think a lot of people shy away from it. They'll be like, I'll never feel it again. But I think it's great that you're positive about it. And I would argue that hollowness, or it's kind of like I use this example all the time, like a lake where all the water's been drained out. That means that you have the capacity to hold that much love in you.
Yes.
So that's beautiful.
Yes, that's right. Ooh, that just gave me the chills. That was good. I like that one. I do. That's the thing about this grief experience. There's no capacity, and it is a hollowness, but I hope that hollowness stays with me. That's how much I love him. That I want to honor that hollow space that can never be filled, but around that hollow space, I'm allowing love in, and I'm allowing myself. I gave myself permission to live again.
Good.
And it's hard to do. It's the hardest thing for a widow to give yourself permission to continue.
So if you're watching this live stream, shoot your shot, boys and girls. Yeah.
I do prefer over 200 pounds. Willing to take applications of 175 if it works out, but there is a weight requirement to ride this ride.
Yeah.
Mama likes the big boys. Mama likes the big boys.
Oh yeah, Kristen.
I'm such a pervert.
I gotta, thank you again. We should do this again. Sorry that I gotta, we've done about an hour and a half. I gotta get wrapped up. And, but where can people find you, and what's your message to the people?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I got some stuff on TikTok too, trying to do the TikTok thing. It feels so old. But I'm on Instagram, Chris Cush. Got a show coming up August 3rd in Fayetteville at Patty's.
This will be out before that.
All female lineup. Come out and support the ladies.
A female. If you're a man, you have to tuck it back. You know, if you're going to this show.
We have someone at the door that will sell you tickets and assist in tucking.
Yeah, it'll be like TSA. They'll be feeling, is there a boat here or not?
Yeah, they're ready. Some of them
better not be.
Mm-hmm. Great tuckers. They're really, really good.
And go see, if you're watching this today, go see your show tonight.
Dog Meadery. It's going to be a great night.
That's a great venue. I go there all the time.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah,
I go there for
really
karaoke.
excited.
I go there for open mic. I love it.
Yeah, that'll be a great time.
Great. Well, thanks again, Kristen. We'll see you next time.